In today's episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about how you can get fit and free from back pain. We're going to explore what that means a little bit and also help those of you that feel like you're maybe stuck in a rut or you've had back pain for a long period of time find a pathway out of trouble. We'll talk about some of the common sort of starting points that people get stuck at and then just formulating something that gives you actionable steps to move forward. So hopefully you're going to find this episode helpful. As always, there is an accompanying article. You can check that out in the link in the description, whatever platform you're watching this on. So let's get kind of stuck straight into it. And one of the big problems with back pain is that quite often there are some errors that take place early on in the journey. We try different treatments, we try different exercises, etc., etc. We try doing nothing, we try doing something, we try ignoring it. And it kind of leads us into getting into a bit of trouble. And we get to this point where we want to be anywhere but here. It might be that you've had a most recent flare-up, most recent relapse, and you're in excruciating pain. Maybe you're halfway around the world on holiday somewhere and your back's flared up and now you're in trouble again and it's ruining something you've been looking forward to all year. It could be any different number of these circumstances. It could be something as simple as you've just got the Christmas tree down from the loft. Bear in mind, it's the start of December now and your back's in trouble and you go, oh gosh, we've got another year of this to look forward to. But quite often that leads people to this decision of, oh, I just want to be anywhere but here, and that often, because of those previous steps that we've taken to try and resolve back pain, leads to a bit of analysis paralysis. We don't know which way to turn. And having the goal of anywhere but here, I just want to be out of pain, I just want to be out of pain, I just want the pain to go away, is a bit self-limiting. It stops us from being able to tangibly move forwards. And from experience over the years, we have to look at the why. Because the reality is, for most people, not everyone, and this doesn't take away from the excruciating pain that you can be in the midst of a flare-up or a relapse or a re-aggravation, but the overwhelming majority of cases, the back pain, maybe it's sciatica, has built up over many years. It's been there, but tolerable. It's only really when it starts to interfere with those specific things, the why do I want to be better, that we start to want to do something about it. And those things could be simple. They could be playing with the kids on the floor. It could be playing with the grandchildren, not having to say, no, I can't pick you up now. It could be enjoying Christmas time. It could be going on holiday. It could be going out and spending an afternoon in the garden with the fear of being, bedbound for the next week or so. Something like that. That's the why that we often don't necessarily explore, especially when we are stuck in this rut and we're in a lot of pain. It's that why, because in order to move forward, saying I want to be anywhere but here, when we are also afraid of moving in any particular direction because of past experience, can be quite disempowering. But the moment we start to identify a specific why, because I want to be able to go for those social events in the evening and just hang out with my friends or family or whatever it may be, or I want to go on that holiday, we can immediately start to evaluate what might be required in order to effectively partake in that activity. And if we take the holiday example, as we've done so many times before, it could be a holiday abroad, it could be a holiday, within the country, it could be just a trip to see family and friends, maybe an overnight trip. We start to be able to formulate a picture of specific tasks, specific things that our body is going to have to do, that our back is going to have to be able to bear in order to effectively partake in that particular activity. Now, it could be pack a suitcase, put it in the car, take it out the car the other side. It could be, as I've mentioned on the other week's podcast, it could be take the Christmas tree from the shops to home, set it up. It could be a number of different things. And excuse the Christmas analogies if you're watching this some other time of year. It just happens to be December time when we're recording this. So that's kind of in the forefront of your mind. But any number of different activities, we have something there. We have a load. We have an activity that our body is going to have to bear. And that allows us to start to move on to the next more practical step, which is I want to be free from pain. I want to be fit. If we stop there, it doesn't really make any sense, because for what is the important question? I want to be able to be out of pain so that I can go on holiday with family, go on a road trip, enjoy an evening with friends, etc., etc. Be able to sit down for longer than 5 minutes, etc. I want to be fit for a specific activity, and therefore I want my back to be able to cope with that specific activity, which then has these features, these things that occur, these strains that are going to be placed on the back, and we then have a strong action plan, tangible things that we can then aim for. So we move from a position where we're trying to be anywhere but here, which is essentially nowhere. Try going on a journey and going to anywhere but here. especially if we've got traps all around us that we could fall into and have fallen into in the past. We just wouldn't move. But now we know I want to be anywhere but here, but I also want to be over there able to do that thing. And that happens to involve me having to lift a 15, 20 kilo load on my back. Maybe it's an awkward load and maybe lift it for a period of time. Okay, now I need to be able to tolerate that. What do I have to do to develop that skill, develop that tolerance, help my back heal to the point where it can do that thing? And that's where we start to make some real progress. We start to get an idea of what precisely we can do. And also in the same process of doing that, if you're lucky enough to be seeing this maybe and you haven't got that long history of back pain, this is maybe your first ever episode, then you can avoid many of the waste of time activities, waste of time exercises that we've reviewed, and we've reviewed many of those over the years, and steer clear of certain exercises which have no purpose, or the purpose of those exercises does not move you closer to that specific aim that you're working towards. And it's really important to have these understandings, because just being free from pain on a moment-to-moment basis is one thing, but that's not very liberating if the moment you do anything, all of a sudden the pain comes back, because we will all have periods during the day where the pain is relatively less or relatively insignificant or not as much there as it is at other times. That might not be just during the day. That might be periods of days, or it might be every so often. The pain isn't really there as much. We don't notice it as much. And we have to understand that our body is constantly trying to heal. Every single day, your body is trying to, patch up where that wound is, calm the inflammation down to a manageable level, and get the healing process underway. But if we then start challenging our body and it's not capable of dealing with those stresses and strains, then we flare up. Then we have this cycle of the back pain coming back and then going away and then coming back and then going away and coming back. And that's where one of the critical mistakes that people make quite often is they lose sight of that goal. I need to be able to do that particular thing. And they have these relapses because the pain goes away. So they stop pursuing that goal of being able to build a certain degree of tolerance. Or maybe that was never a goal in the first instance. Maybe they didn't make that goal. And you do some exercises, you feel a little bit better, and you're like, oh, back's fixed. Back to those things I want to do again. And then it happens again, and then it happens again. And that's quite often the cycle of things that have happened that lead one to being at the start of today's episode going, I want to be anywhere but here. I keep having back pain flare-ups and I don't know why. Is because we haven't built strength towards a purpose, and that purpose isn't relevant to our daily life. So we had a really good example, and every single one of you watching this, if you've been struggling with back pain, should be doing this seriously, because I know it's something that is not done seriously by many people until they kind of get instructed to do it. And even sometimes then it's still not done in an effective manner, which is really important. And that is evaluate, what do you demand of yourself? So this past week, we had a great example of one of the members in the group was struggling with some lunges, getting a little bit of knee discomfort, and wasn't sure why. The lunges weren't particularly deep. It's a real weakness. I've got bad knees, I've had bad knees, etc. And it just transpired that when she took a step back and looked at her day, because of the the makeup of the house, etc., etc., it turns out she was doing somewhere in the region of 400 steps a day, potentially. That's staircase steps, not walking, but going up and down stairs to the tune of about 400 a day, and that's quite significant. And although it might only be 5 or 10 at a time, it adds up over time, especially if we have these weaknesses. And we invariably don't stop to look at something as simple as getting up out of a chair or going up a staircase and going, am I doing this correctly? Instead, if it starts to hurt us a little bit, we just lean a little bit more on the handrail. We put our weight on the other leg instead of this leg as we're going up the stairs. We always weight bear on the same leg. That's the stronger leg, perhaps. We don't stop and go, okay, let's get this right. And this is a great example where something like that is allowing us to get into a habit of weakness developing in the musculature. Weakness that not only in this case is affecting the knees or leading to a deterioration in knee health, but weakness that also has a knock-on effect on the lower back. And reversing this process by starting to hone in on that particular exercise, it was a lunge in this particular case, and saying, right, I am doing lots of lunges, actually perhaps 400 a day. That's a daily activity, by the way. And that puts significant strain on both my legs and then to a certain degree my back if I'm carrying things as I go up and down the stairs, etc. Then I need to build resilience to this. And that's something that I can tangibly do. I can start getting involved in these exercises and making sure that if it's the laundry that I might be taking upstairs, that might be a 5-10 kilo weight, and maybe it's something else I'm taking up and down the stairs that I'm going to have to carry. I can start to make sure that I'm building towards a strength goal that is significantly greater than any of those 10 or 15 stairs that I might have to do in any one go will demand of me on a daily basis. And that's how we start to make some real improvement in the strength and resilience of our back and actually be fit and free from back pain for the purposes of partaking in our daily life activities without constantly getting flare-ups or overstraining our body. That's the really important goal there. And there we've got a daily life activity. For many people, unfortunately, with back pain, we don't, from an experience standpoint, we haven't really specialized clinically or with members in seeing sort of elite high-level athletes. We just didn't really come across those. We treated ordinary people, living, working, etc., etc. And therefore they weren't sort of the, the elite level powerlifter where we've got a lot of muscle mass. And in most cases, when those individuals injure their back, they have a team of support, etc., and they recover very quickly because their body's in peak physical condition. But the average person is not in that condition. And therefore, what little muscle mass that they did have, muscle strength that they did have, as soon as you injure your back and you have recurrent episodes and you start to shy away from activities, do less and less and less, maybe follow on with some activities that aren't promoting the right sort of goals or aims or in adherence with your goals and aims, such as things like knee hugs, child's pose, sciatic flossing, those sorts of things. You're never going to knee hug your way to being able to tolerate a 20 kilo load. It's just not going to happen. Nothing about the knee hug, for example, builds tolerance and load in your tolerance to load in your lower back. So it's a purposeless exercise if you want to be able to do those things without trouble. So that's to say that the ordinary person loses what little muscle mass they had, and therefore the activities of daily life become themselves problematic. And that's why we see this haphazard occurrence where the back pain kind of flares up for quote unquote no reason, but we haven't had an honest appraisal of our daily life, and we steadily rely more and more on other individuals, other professionals saying, I will fix your back pain for you, rather than saying, I will help you fix your own back pain because you live with you 365 days of the year, 24 hours a day. And you need to be part of the developing that solution and building you back up to the point where you can tolerate the forces and loads that you elect to, maybe subconsciously or consciously, put through that body on a daily basis. And we acknowledge that there are some weaknesses there. But now we've got a aim, a understanding, a why, that we are trying to build our back, trying to get free from back pain. We are working towards, again, being able to carry a suitcase or load a suitcase into a car, or load a toddler into their car seat, or any number of other activities. We have a specific weight that we want to attain. Let's say it's 15 or 20 kilos. And then we say, well, we've got some exercises where we could safely, in a controlled manner, steadily apply more and more load as we reach towards that 15, 20 kilo mark, and then exceed that 20 kilo mark in that safe environment to rebuild the tolerance of our lower back to that load. We can very quickly then eliminate certain exercises that have no place in such a pathway towards that goal, such as I've mentioned, the knee hugs, etc., and slowly work towards rebuilding our strength, because we have a what specifically we need to do, we have a why we're looking to do it, and we have that what is the activity we want to do. We have a what in terms of the weight we want to be able to tolerate safely, and we have a why because we want to do those things. And now we actually have a plan, and to close this particular episode out, a great quote by someone I had heard, a guy called Mark Bell. I think he might have been the first one to say it, or I've heard him say it a number of times. And it was, strength is never a weakness, and weakness is never a strength. The prospects of you being stronger and more able to bear load, which is inevitably going to be placed on your lower back of all structures, but the hips, knees, and ankles as well, is always going to be to your benefit. Bar almost no circumstances, especially for the ordinary individual. You being stronger and more able to bear that load is never, ever going to be a weakness for you. And quite equally, on the other side, the weaknesses that you currently have, the inability to bear loads that you currently have, will never, ever be a strength. And there's no shortcuts to being able to improve the status quo. Sometimes it needs a little bit of support. Often it needs a little bit of direction. But it needs you to consistently apply the plan, apply those particular exercises, let's say, those loads, smaller to start with and then gradually greater, in order for you to build your own body. Now, there's other aspects there. There's nutrition, there's, making sure you're eating enough food, etc., etc. But just getting those fundamentals down first and understanding the concept that you can be a significant part of the solution to get your back fit and strong and free from pain to do the things that you want to do, fill in the blank here, is something that we all have the power to do. And if we can just take a moment to step back and recognize that we can get stronger than we currently are today, we can evaluate the things that we want to do on a daily basis and the things we want to do on an extraordinary basis, such as travel, etc., and the loads that we might be exposed to in those circumstances, then we can really set about having a plan and know how far along that journey of strengthening we need to go to make sure that we're fundamentally have all of our bases covered in terms of checks and balances. Now, if you want to go and do some crazy sorts of activities, you want to get involved in contact sport, maybe you like doing martial arts, maybe you like, playing, doing other feats of greater athleticism, then you might need to be able to tolerate more load than someone that just wants to go and potter around in the garden, that wants to go on a holiday once a year or twice a year and be able to travel there and back without trouble. But both parties will need to engage in the strengthening process to allow them to be fit and strong and pain-free for X activity. The question is, how far along that process do we have to go? And the nice thing is we can all objectively get a number. So it takes the guessing out of the game. We know what sort of things we're going to be exposed to. We know how heavy that pot in the garden is, or that lift we have to lift in competition. We can measure it, and therefore we can work on attaining it and just moving steadily, day by day, week by week, one foot in front of the other towards that particular goal. So I know today's episode has been a little bit different, but hopefully it's been there. We don't every single week do an episode on a specific condition or a specific thing or specific that. This one is really hopefully about you just taking a moment, for some of you watching this, to step back and evaluate your daily life, evaluate what direction you're going in and how far you need to push your strengthening process, because it is very much a strengthening process that's going to lead this charge in terms of getting you towards where you want to be in terms of being pain-free and not having back pain on a daily basis. So if you've got any questions, any comments, any things that spring to mind, then you can always use that comment section underneath here. Remember, if you know someone else has been struggling, maybe they're in a position where you see them every time and they're struggling with back pain and they're kind of maybe in that analysis paralysis kind of phase. Maybe you can share this episode with them and it'll help them to kind of start to see the wood from the trees and see a pathway out, because there's nothing worse than feeling almost in that sort of paralyzed. I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to go that way because I've been hurt that way before. I tried treatment and that made me worse, or I tried treatment and it didn't really do anything. It was just a waste of money. Being in that position and feeling very disempowered is very depressing for many people, and that's perhaps not spoken about enough. And just giving someone a nice pathway that they can be part of, not reliant on someone else, but they can be part of to go forwards, can be really a game changer for many people. And we've seen that over the years more than enough times with the transformative effect that the right sort of work can have on an individual that has been at wit's end with their back pain. So thanks so much for joining us this week. Hope you found it helpful, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the podcast.